Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Lethbridge Police and EMS find the body of a man who was reported missing on August the 10th. UCP caucus chair and Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf has details of a new seniors housing complex coming to the Windy City. And as the temperature increases in Alberta, so is the risk for wildfires. Officials say there are 25 active wildfires burning right now in the province. Thanks so much for joining us. A man who was last seen on August the 10th was found dead by Lethbridge police over the weekend. 30-year-old Braden Allen Van Buren's body was discovered with the help of Lethbridge Fire and EMS in the Chinook Lake region of the Uplands. Police do not suspect foul play and will not comment further during their investigation. The Government of Alberta joined in the grand opening celebration of a new 64-unit Southgate Seniors Complex in our city. The Cottages at Southgate offers a mixed income rental model that bases rent on what people can afford. Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf says even though the property is of benefit to seniors, it will be opening up other spaces around the city for renters of all ages.
We all know here, not just in Lethbridge, not just in Alberta, right across Canada, there's a housing shortage. So whenever we pull a project like this forward, 64 beds, that's a significant number for Lethbridge. Now this project is specifically meant for seniors and to support them. But what it'll do is, because of the Lethbridge Housing Authority and their work, it'll open up other spots in other areas of the city to pull in those who need supportive housing in other areas.
MLA Neudorf also spoke about why he decided to throw his support behind UCP leadership hopeful Danielle Smith.
It really boils down to the fact of how she's conducted herself and approached this. And she's really gone above and beyond to listen to constituents, listen to private members especially, and to work from a grassroots up kind of philosophy where everybody contributes. We're grown up, we understand the realm, not everybody gets what they ask for, but being heard is very, very significant in building a unified team.
The UCP will choose its new leader on October the 6th. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney announced a new campaign to bring more skilled workers to Alberta. He says the focus will be on reaching out to those in various sectors in both Vancouver and Toronto.
The campaign will be launched in two phases. The first, that starts today, will be in transit stations and buses and trains in Vancouver and Toronto areas, and targeted to young professionals across the full range of digital and social media platforms. All ads will point to a new website, albertaiscalling.ca. That's albertaiscalling.ca. The second phase will launch in mid-September and feature some bolder and more high-impact tactics. I plan to make a trip to Toronto to launch phase 2, so please stay tuned for that.
Now, the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees say ad campaigns will not fix the fundamental problems driving staff shortages here in our province. The union's Vice President, Bobby Jo Boroday, says if Alberta wants to attract and retain workers, then the attacks have to stop.
It's unfortunate that the list is actually quite long. A few of the examples are Bill 47, which is a specific attack on occupational health and safety standards within the workplace. We've got Bill 32, which puts significant limitations around workers' abilities to picket and where they can picket in the event of a strike. We've got a government who has consistently been trying to privatize healthcare as well as other public services. We've seen them indicate in the public that they wish to cut 11,000 jobs in healthcare, and all of our employees are going to the table, sitting across from employers, including the government, where significant rollbacks are being put forward. So, those are a few of the examples of the attacks, and those need to stop before Alberta actually becomes a desirable place to work.
Alberta's NDP finance critic Shanna Phillips says former Finance Minister Travis Taves needs to come clean on a $1.3 billion lawsuit stemming from losses incurred from a failed high-risk investment strategy at AIMCO.
AIMCO undertook a number of very risky investment strategies that resulted in $2.1 billion of losses to our public sector pension plans. Those are the pension plans that cover everyone from folks who work in hospitals, schools, firefighters, and so on, and the broader Alberta Public Service. Now, that risky strategy also caused a serious loss to our Heritage Trust Fund, but it caused a big loss to those pension plans. So now, the pension plans representing those hundreds of thousands of Alberta workers are seeking damages from the Government of Alberta of $1.3 billion, plus interest and costs. That is really big money that we are on the hook for.
August 15th marks the 77th anniversary that Canadian prisoners of war were liberated as part of Victory over Japan Day. These brave soldiers were honored on Monday morning in Lethbridge. Many in the Canadian military fought in the Battle of Hong Kong in 1941 during World War II and were in prison for 4 years until they were rescued. As BCN's Micah Quinn explains now, family members and local dignitaries raised a flag at Lethbridge City Hall and laid wreaths at the cenotaph to mark the very special occasion.
Members of the Hong Kong Veterans Commemorative Association were on hand to raise a flag on Monday morning in honor of the World War II veterans who became prisoners of war. A total of 1,975 Canadian soldiers volunteered in 1941 to support a garrison of 12,000 British, East Indian, and Hong Kong volunteers to defend the British colony of Hong Kong from Japanese invasion. Norma Fuchs, along with her husband Glenn, laid a wreath at the Lethbridge Cenotaph to honor the soldiers. Her father, John Duran, was one of the men who became a POW, and it was an emotional time for Fuchs, recounting the memories of her father.
I think of him, and he'd be proud that I was here. Him and all the guys, like I knew a lot of the veterans in Calgary, and there was one in particular that we spent the last 20 years with, you know, going for lunches and dinners. He had better memories than my dad, so it helped me so much to understand how my dad was.
Newton Bullshields, a member of the Headdress Society, sang a song to honor the POWs during the ceremony. On December 8th of 1941, 50,000 Japanese soldiers invaded Hong Kong, and after 17 days and nights of battle, the Canadian troops were out of ammo, food, and water. On December 25th, the British governor Mark Aitchison Young surrendered, even though the soldiers said they were willing to continue on with the battle. The surviving soldiers were prisoners of war in Hong Kong and Japan for almost 4 years. Kathy Carlson, a member of the Hong Kong Veterans Commemorative Association, says it's vital to educate people about the horrors of what the men had to go through as POWs.
For the rest of their lives, those veterans struggled because of ill health, emotional difficulties, failed marriages. It went on. And in essence, they had what they call now PTSD. So many didn't survive beyond the 90s. There was like almost 400 that had passed.
The Canadian soldiers were liberated on August 15th, 1945 at 11 a.m. as the Japanese surrendered after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Hagan is hosting a free community barbecue. Now, following the Whoop Up Days parade on August the 23rd, the first 750 people will be able to receive free burgers, hot dogs, and pop at City Hall. Country artist Trevor Panzak will also be performing some tunes. Now, to add to the festivities, champion chuck wagon driver Chris Molly, who won the Calgary Stampede's Dash for Cash last month, will be there signing autographs. Higgins says this is going to be a very exciting event to go along with the start of Whoop Up Days.
Starting off with this, with a fantastic, parade, this event here, multiple other pancake breakfasts and other barbecues going on around the community, and also the Pro Rodeo, something we've missed for so long. It's coming back to Lethbridge, so all of this together is just an event that we want everybody to come out, the community to enjoy this great event after being, again, a little bit locked up after these past few years.
The Mayor's Community Barbecue will take place just outside of City Hall at 11:30 a.m. on August the 23rd. Mark that down on the calendar. The risk of wildfires in our province is on the rise as temperatures hover around 30 degrees Celsius for much of the province. There are currently 25 active wildfires in Alberta right now. The danger in the eastern slopes of the Canadian Rockies remains high, and all existing fire permits are suspended. Fire bans are also in effect for Banff, Canmore, Cypress County, and here in Lethbridge in the River Valley. Conservation advocates are concerned about a proposal for a Calgary to Banff passenger train. Lyricon Capital Inc., the lead private sector proponent, is touting its proposal as a hydrogen-powered transportation solution with lower greenhouse gas emissions than driving. But a group of 5 environmental groups say the project has some environmental risks. There are concerns about wildlife deaths, particularly grizzly bears, and the fragmentation of wildlife habitat in Alberta's already busy Bow Valley. There's been a lot of discussion surrounding the Trudeau Liberals' new legislation, Bill C-21, or the handgun ban, as some refer to it. The subject of gun violence has come up a lot here in Canada recently, following the mass shootings this year in the United States. Alan Friesen is a firearms instructor and past president of the Alberta Fish and Game Association. He says Bill C-21 is an attack on legal gun owners. He says we already have laws making it difficult to own a firearm here in Canada as opposed to the U.S.
You could buy a gun anywhere, any weekend. You can go to a swap meet and buy a gun in the United States, right? They don't even ask for your piece of ID, right? Here, you have to take a course. You have to take 2 courses, Canadian Firearm Safety Course or Canadian Firearm Restricted Safety Course, in order that you can apply for a license. When you apply for a license, you're going to answer questions about your mental health, your financial health, your marital health, or your relationship health, those kind of things. You're going to provide references that are going to check you over. They're going to, of course, going to do a police check. And firearm owners in Canada are the most vetted people in our whole country.
Make sure you catch the full interview with firearms instructor Alan Friesen and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up in the second half of our newscast. Canada's Chief Public Health Officer says plans are underway to look through Canadian sewage to test for and measure new health threats like monkeypox and polio. Over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, wastewater detection became a key way to track the spread of the virus.
I think moving forwards, it could form part of our monitoring of the disease activity going up and down across the country. So it's actually quite complicated methodology, but I think we've now landed on something that can probably be utilized more broadly. So far, we've of course looked at COVID and monkeypox. Poliovirus is something that has been monitored in environmental samples throughout the world in different places. So that is something that is a bit more established. We haven't to date been looking for polioviruses, but should that need arise, of course, we can. We're already starting to look at what the options are.
An immigration spokesperson says the federal government is committed to bringing in at least 40,000 Afghan refugees who assisted the Canadian military. The Liberals continue to face criticism for not doing enough to get people in danger from the Taliban out of the country. So far, just 17,300 Afghans have made it to Canada, a situation the government says is the result of challenges getting people out of Afghanistan. NDP MP Jenny Kwan is warning the Canadian government will have blood on its hands if it does not cut red tape allowing more Afghans to come into Canada. She said the Taliban is hunting down those in Afghanistan who helped Canada in the past.
The situation in Afghanistan is dire. The Canadian government announced special immigration measures for Afghans, and the Liberals promised to resettle 40,000 Afghans to Canada as of August 11th. 17,375 people have arrived in Canada. The government set an arbitrary quota of 18,000 for those who assisted Canada. The quota is fast filling up, and yet many Afghans who served Canada are left behind.
Now here's a follow-up to a story we first brought you last week. The author of the Satanic Verses, Salman Rushdie, who was attacked with a knife in New York State, is still recovering in hospital. His agent says his condition is improving. Now, a bounty on Rushdie's head was created by Iran back in the 1980s after he wrote the book Satanic Verses. According to our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, what is odd about this attacker is that he wasn't even born when the fatwa was first issued.
What's interesting is that the assailant in this case is 24 years old. So he was not even born when this fatwa was issued. That just goes to show the level of indoctrination, of radicalization that this individual must have received growing up in New Jersey, of all places, not having any contact physically with the Iranian regime, but yet the latest reports indicate that he had direct contact with Iran's most extreme paramilitary arm, the Revolutionary Guard.
Make sure you catch the full interview with our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari coming up in the second half of our program. Edward Graham visited eastern Kentucky recently, where Samaritan's Purse volunteers have been helping homeowners following devastating flooding in late July. A group from Samaritan's Purse, along with the Billy Graham Association, surveyed the damage and met with residents who lost both loved ones and property in the flood.
It had rained for like 2 or 3 days. The water was over the road. It was over the bridges. The flood came up so fast that a lot of people didn't have time to get out.
I'm in eastern Kentucky right now where there's just been unprecedented flooding from the recent storms. Samaritan's Purse deploys during a time of crisis to love and serve others. We're responding right now to muck out homes, shovel out the dirt, remove debris, to get the mold out so we can quickly get homeowners back in. But we can't do it without you. We need volunteers.
There's so many people here that need help. They need faith. My foundation right now is my faith in God and my Lord Jesus Christ.
I've met many homeowners today that have lost everything, that lost loved ones, and this community is grieving. Samaritan's Purse wants to meet their immediate needs, just like the story of the Good Samaritan. And we want this community that Jesus loves them. Even during all this turmoil, all this destruction, Jesus has not forsaken them, and he loves them.
I can feel him in my heart telling me that everything is going to be okay.
Pray for eastern Kentucky right now, but pray especially for those families that have lost loved ones. There have been so many deaths in this part of the state. I ask that you go to Samaritan's Purse webpage and you can figure out how you can get involved and come up here and volunteer. Thank you.
So great to see the work that they're doing. Bianca Andrescu of Mississauga, Ontario, lost to China's Zhang Qinwen in the round of 16 at the National Bank Open Tennis Tournament. She was the last Canadian on the women's side of the draw, and she said she cannot wait to play in the event again.
It was a very difficult match. I think she played great tennis. I wouldn't say I was on my A game, but I gave my best with what I had today. I think I fought really hard. And in the third set, she was just more clutch in the more important points. Well, considering my preparation up until this tournament and like what happened last week in San Jose, I'm just super happy that I was able to play this tournament, first of all. And getting through to, you know, the round of 16 was incredible. I had no expectations going in. All I wanted to do was enjoy myself as much as I could, have fun, get the crowd going, and just give my all.
You know, it was almost too hot for playing tennis outside here in Lethbridge today. We had another heat warning from Environment Canada, and the hot temperatures will be sticking around for much of southwestern Alberta for the foreseeable future. Complete weather details are on deck. Well, it was another hot one in Lethbridge as the heat warning from Environment Canada continued. Tonight it should be mainly clear with a low near 14 degrees. Tuesday, lots of sunshine again with a high expected near 32. Wednesday, mainly clear with a high of 31. Thursday, warming up slightly to 32 degrees. And on Friday, even hotter with a high of 33 in the forecast. A sunny and hot weekend is shaping up so far. Sunshine at 34 degrees on Saturday, sunny and 32 on Sunday. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 26 degrees with an average low of 10. The record high was 34 degrees set back in 1961, and the record low was only 3 degrees back in 2000. The sun rose at 6:22 and set at 8:50. Let's see how tomorrow's shaping up across the country now. It should be mainly sunny and 25 in both Victoria and Vancouver. Just a few clouds and 28 is on tap for Calgary. A mixture of sun and cloud and 27 for Edmonton. Sunshine and 30 degrees for Regina. Mainly clear and 30 as well for Saskatoon. Expect thunderstorms at 26 in Winnipeg. In the central part of the country, expect an overcast day and 27 in Toronto. A chance of thunder showers at 27 in Ottawa. Cloudy and 28 degrees for Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, there's a slight chance of rain developing and 26 for Fredericton. Overcast to 25 for Halifax. Increasing clouds and 24 for Charlottetown. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, there's a 40% chance of showers developing and a high of 19 degrees on Tuesday. The chairman and CEO of Pfizer has tested positive for COVID-19. Albert Bourla has already received 4 shots of his company's vaccine and says he's experiencing mild symptoms. Bourla is also taking Pfizer's Paxlovid pill treatment and is self-isolating. He says he's hopeful for a very quick recovery. Stats Canada says manufacturing sales fell 0.8% to $71.8 billion in June. Officials say it was weighed down by the aerospace products and parts sector, which dropped 16.8%. Economists say the outlook is even more challenging, with manufacturing surveys on both sides of the border weakening in recent months. The report came ahead of Tuesday's release of inflation information for July. Canadian home sales fell for the 5th consecutive month between June and July. On a seasonally adjusted basis, the Canadian Real Estate Association says sales in July fell 5.3% compared with June. The actual number of sales last month was just under 38,000. That is a 29% drop compared with July of last year. The average sales price was just under $630,000. That's a 5% drop from July of 2021. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up almost a point today to finish at 20,180. The Dow was up 151 points to 33,912. The S&P 500 was up 16 points on the day to 4297, and the Nasdaq was up 80 to 13,128. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 402 to 88.07 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 3 cents to 8.80 US. Gold was down 8 cents to 17.7963 US an ounce, and silver was even on the day at $20.27 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $10.75 per bushel, barley's at $7.81, canola's at $18.59, and corn is at $10.80 per bushel. Live cattle were down 48 cents to $139.75. Feeder cattle were up 30 cents to $179.63. And lean hogs October contract was up 55 cents to $100.58. The Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 77.49 US. Recapping one of our top stories, a man who was last seen on August the 10th was found dead by Lethbridge police over the weekend. 30-year-old Braden Allen Van Buren's body was discovered with the help of Lethbridge Fire and EMS in the Chinook Lake region of the Uplands. Police do not suspect foul play and will not comment further during the investigation. 5 Americans, including a pregnant woman, were recently wounded during an attack by a Palestinian gunman. Our Foreign Affairs expert Lisa Daftari will have details shortly. And listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.
Here's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar. Coming up on August 27th and 28th is the 15th Lethbridge Scouts Giant Bazaar, taking place at Kingsman Park at the Lethbridge Fish and Game Association Hut, beginning at 10 a.m. each day. There you'll find gently used and new items, along with a silent auction, a 50-50 raffle, bake sale, and barbecue. All proceeds will go to fund the 15th Lethbridge Scouts. For details, visit 15thlethbridgescouts.com. Lethbridge Sport Council's Outdoor Roving Gyms program is taking place Tuesdays behind Nicholas Sharon Arena and Thursdays alternating between Henderson Lake Park and Legacy Park from 10 to 11 a.m. This program is for kids ages 5 and under and their caregivers. Come and enjoy an hour of fun and get active. Registration is required and space is limited. For details and to register, visit lethbridgesportcouncil.ca/rovinggyms. And that's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar.
One of the recent stories we brought you on Bridge City News was the attack of author Salman Rushdie. The writer of the Satanic Verses was stabbed in the neck during a public appearance in New York State. Fortunately, he's off of a ventilator right now, and his agent says his condition is improving. To talk about this in more detail is our Foreign Affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, who joins us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, the bounty on Rushdie's head from Iran has been around since the 1980s. Why an attack now?
Right. And you know what's unbelievable about this, that this is a 33-year-old fatwa, which is a religious bounty, almost an obligation for those who follow, obviously, the extreme forms of Islam, to go after this man for allegedly defaming or characterizing the Prophet Muhammad in not a flattering light in his book, Satanic Verses. What's interesting is that the assailant in this case is 24 years old. So he was not even born when this fatwa was issued. That just goes to show the level of indoctrination, of radicalization that this individual must have received growing up in New Jersey, of all places, not having any contact physically with the Iranian regime, but yet the latest reports indicate that he had direct contact with Iran's most extreme paramilitary arm, the Revolutionary Guard. So, again, I want to take a little bit of a sidestep here and say, wake up, everyone. This, more than anything, shows that the Iran regime not only is making threats against American lawmakers, past and present, they're actually going after these characters by connecting with those who live among us to carry out these attacks on American soil. I mean, it's a crazy development when you think about this story. Again, a 24-year-old, his family is of Lebanese descent. The parents go back and forth between Lebanon, but he himself born, raised in New Jersey. And, again, the level of indoctrination, radicalization that this individual must have received in order to carry out such an attack. He came up with fake identification. He signed up for this talk. I spoke to someone this morning who grew up in that area and had been to this this hall sort of place. It's a large establishment where they have concerts and they have events and such. And he said that in recent years they have taken pretty much a left, very liberal turn. And there's according to this gentleman, lack of security. Which is very surprising, because if you do have a speaker like Salman Rushdie, you better have security, somebody who's walking around his whole life with security. And when Salman Rushdie was stabbed, the only people who rushed to stage were not armed guards or security guards, but they were actually those in attendance, middle-aged men who tried to do the best that they can to kind of save him, get him help, and get the assailant off of him. It's a crazy story. It's nuts that this happened in this day and age while this fatwa was 33 years old. But they finally caught up with him. And the attacker, did I read that correctly, is pleaded not guilty? That's right. So he is being charged on second-degree attempted murder charges. He pled not guilty on Saturday, but is being held without bail. What's crazy is that in the 48 hours after the attack, the media was still saying that the motive was unknown. Someone with a $3 million bounty on his head, you have an extremist going after him, and the motive is unknown. So obviously we do know what the motive is. And just the update is that Salman Rushdie has been taken off the ventilator, but he did receive injuries in the liver, in the arm, and in the eye. And it looks as though he will lose one of his eyes, but he's off the ventilator and he is speaking now, but he has a long road to recovery. Lisa, 5 Americans, including a pregnant woman, were recently wounded by a Palestinian gunman. What can you tell us about this attack, which Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad both praised? Yeah, they praise this. Look, we've seen everything come out of Israel, especially in recent days. And as we know, this is a 24/7 job for Israelis to keep themselves and the civilians there safe. We've seen car rammings, we've seen suicide bombings, which is their weapon of choice for many, many years. But now we're seeing a lot of shootings. So unfortunately, these perpetrators are getting guns. And who's delivering these guns to them? Of course, the Iran regime is delivering them to Hamas, is delivering them to Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and of course getting into the hands of these perpetrators who are more than willing to go into these public areas and start shooting at people. This is not a military conflict. This is terrorism. And this story, of course, demonstrating that better than anything else. You had a pregnant woman, you have children, you have Americans who are traveling there from New York, obviously Jerusalem being a very big hotspot in the summer in terms of tourism from all over, particularly, Canada, the United States, people traveling there. So, again, what they have to deal with day in and day out is this is just a glimpse, but we've had many terror attacks this summer, and this being just the latest. A United Nations official has been forced to step down as head of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in the Palestinian Authority after criticizing the recent rocket attacks in Israel during Operation Breaking Dawn. Tell me more. Hal, how crazy is this? This is all you need to know about the culture of the UN and its extreme and blatant bias against Israel. This individual who was working at the UN made a comment against a terror organization, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The title of the group has jihad in it. They are a terror organization. They claim to be a terror organization. They get funding from the Islamic regime in Iran. And this individual made a comment about it, and they were fired on the spot. So you understand that at the UN, it is business as usual. They will defend terrorists when it comes to Israel. They will defend those who are trying to kill innocent civilians when it comes to Israel, and they will investigate Israel for war crimes and such. So it's a crazy story, but it is very illustrative of the culture at the United Nations.
Lisa, a delegation of U.S. lawmakers arrived in Taiwan over the weekend for a trip in which they will meet with Taiwan's president. Now, this moves ahead despite the ongoing military tensions between the self-ruled island and China.
Yes. So there was mixed opinion about Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan last week. Some believed, well, no one can tell her not to go. And some believed, well, in what capacity is she really going in as Speaker of the House? But she made her trip. It was short. I don't know if you want to call it sweet, but it was short. And now there is a delegation who is going because they want to double down on Nancy Pelosi's trip, and they want to show U.S. solidarity with Taiwan, and they want to actually stick it to the Chinese and say, you can't tell us what to do, so we're going to be here to show our support. Of course, this will build in escalations. In the aftermath, and I should say coinciding with Nancy Pelosi's trip, we saw a lot of military drills that China was conducting that actually forced Taiwan to cancel flights. They actually had to move certain aspects of their own aerial activity in order to kind of stay away from the Chinese and their military drills in order not to escalate what was going on in the skies. But now, of course, there will be a response to this. I know China's not going to sit back and take this. They will definitely show, at least symbolically, some show of muscle and to say that we're not going to stand for the United States siding with Taiwan, at least this openly.
According to Chinese state television, Lisa, military drills have forced the U.S. Navy to back away from Taiwan.
Yes, it's interesting because China is not only about the show of its might, but also its propaganda, of course. So in this latest chapter of Chinese propaganda, the government is saying, we showed them and the drills really worked, and it's a good thing that we stepped up and they backed down. So yes, it's a Chinese propaganda. But look, they're not so wrong, and I'll tell you why. The Americans can show all the support that they want for Taiwan, but we have let this Chinese beast grow and grow and grow, and it's expanded its influence, it's expanded its wealth, and it's expanded its know-how in terms of military might and technology and so on. And I say this all the time. Their fifth graders are probably learning calculus, while our fifth graders are wondering what transgenderism is and things like that. So they are definitely grooming the next generation to be mighty and to be a world power. The United States and the West is kind of slacking on that. So look, they are a threat, and they are a credible threat. So regardless of, Chinese propaganda, and they will say what they want, and they will, beat their chests as much as they want, but there is some truth to the might and the power and the ability of the Chinese government that the United States and the West has to pay attention to.
Now, bringing things a little closer to home, Lisa, the governor of Arizona, Doug Ducey, has had enough. He's issued an executive order to fill the gaps in the Yuma border walls beginning immediately. He says they're simply frustrated with the crisis at their border.
Yes. So there was a story just yesterday. 500 people got in just yesterday, just in one day. We've had this conversation back and forth a lot. There is the liberal talking points about how they want immigration to look like, what they want humanitarian borders to look like, and then there's the reality of not being able to vet these individuals, not being able to absorb these individuals when they get shipped on a bus to DC and New York. The mayor of DC wants the guards to come out and to kind of stop the migrants from flowing into the city. So there is the logistics of it, right? So when it comes down to the logistics of it, we look at border towns, we look at places like Texas and Arizona, they just cannot absorb the sheer numbers. So they have to stop it. And we come back to the wall being built. And it was a no-no when Donald Trump wanted to do it, because it seemed like it was unfair and inhumane. Inhumane is these people coming over, getting pushed into child trafficking and sex trafficking, getting raped, bringing in disease, bringing in fentanyl, bringing in drugs into our suburbs and killing young people, and the list goes on and on. So there are many more cons than pros in terms of having these open borders. And of course, again, border towns in Arizona, Texas, and so on are fed up, and something needs to be done about it.
Lisa, what were the FBI looking for specifically, and what did they find at Donald Trump's Florida home during the recent warrant and seizure?
Oh, okay. Great question. So both sides in this case think that they have the smoking gun, and the smoking gun being, well, the FBI says they kind of work backwards. They went in with a warrant to look for something incriminating, and they believe they found something incriminating. Now, warrants don't really work that way. You got to go in with, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, and then you find X, Y, and Z. On the flip side, those who are defending Donald Trump say that they did not find anything. All the documents that they found were either in the process of being declassified or were not anything. They later came back and said that they were looking for documents relating to nuclear secrets. Again, it's such a mishmash, and it's such a desecration of rule of law in terms of making it up as we go along, that it's embarrassing. And I hate to kind of echo the sentiments of Dan Crenshaw, who was kind of I guess he was criticized for saying this as a Republican. He came out and said, the Democrats push the Republicans to a place to say defund the FBI, which is nonsense. And we don't want to play that way, which is absolutely true. We don't want to play in a place where we all disrespect the country, whether you're on the left or on the right. Whether the left is saying defund the police or the right is saying defund the FBI, it's because we think the system doesn't work. And that's not the America that we love. And that's not the country that we're building. And that's not the country that we're, dedicated to. So it's very unfortunate what happened, regardless of whether you think the FBI was wrong, if you think Donald Trump was wrong. The way they went about it was completely wrong. And it was a lack of transparency to the American people. And the media, of course, went along with it. So we're working backwards here to piece everything together, and what they will find and what they will announce, who knows? And who knows if it's actually why they went in. And I think that that's why people are very upset about this situation.
The U.S. Army is expected to fall nearly 40,000 troops short of its recruiting goals over the next couple of years, Lisa. Apparently, woke military policies are to blame for the enlistment decline. Tell me more.
There's a decline in all of this. I just was having a conversation with someone this morning about, in the next generation, who's going to grow up to want to be a police officer, when there's no respect, for that job, even teachers, there is such a shift in our culture in the West that serving your country, even saying that you're serving your country is something that's frowned upon, and you're going to be judged by half this country if you say you're serving this country, or if you're going off to war, or if you're a police officer in uniform and you're being spit on or beat up in even a more extreme situation. So yes, it's woke, whether it's woke culture within the military or woke culture surrounding the concept of the military and the serving your country and respecting your flag. It's really unfortunate. I'll tell you, as a first generation American, it really hurts me to hear these stories and to hear that there is such a lack of respect and reverence for the country and for serving the country and for being in uniform, that it's going to take a while before this is all fixed, if they're even looking to fix it.
Foreign affairs expert and political reporter Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for joining us once again from Los Angeles.
My pleasure.
We are at the Lethbridge Fish and Game Shooting Sports Facility. I am joined by Ellen Friesen, who is the past president of Lethbridge Fish and Game and a firearms instructor. Right, Ellen?
Correct.
Thanks so much for joining us here on Bridge City News. Actually, you're hosting us, so
thank
you for having us here. Let's talk about what Bill C-21 actually is.
So I guess the components that I understand it to be of what I know, because it kind of reveals as we go with the changes. As an example, there's not supposed to be a registry, but there is a registry now, right? So there was a registry was put in place, then discontinued a number of years ago. Now on an unofficial basis, they've introduced a registry. So people like Marksman Guns and Sports, where they have a store, now they have to record every transaction, the owner, and they have to maintain these records for 20 years. That's a registry. So that's one thing that's been slid in that, oh, we're getting this back. Two is that these firearms that now have been said, oh, these are too scary, Canadians can't own them, those ones that are going to be prohibited, well, that equipment then will be apparently bought back, which is different than what they've done in the past. In the past, they kind of have a grandfathered kind of a status, and then the person who's grandfathered keeps the equipment until they die, and then they destroy it, is basically the idea. Okay. So with this one here, it's different. They're going to come back and say, oh, you know, you can't use this until we come back and buy it from you, and when they buy it, it's going to be, you know, it doesn't matter. As a property owner who legally bought a piece of property in Canada, they're going to tell me what they're going to accept, what I'm going to accept for it, and that's going to be the way it is, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the big chunks to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So do you think that Bill C-21 will actually stop current handgun owners from owning handguns in the future?
No, well, for currents, no. My understanding is they will be able to retain those guns until they die, but everybody else go forward would not. Which then like we have an amazing youth shooting program here, safe shooting department, and we have youth that are part of that, and we got 30 kids that are starting tonight in that program, right? And it is a really amazing opportunity to teach responsibility to children, to show them that their action, action they take has a consequence. With handguns, it happens like right away, and so we want to make that real clear that what they're using, that they have to respect it, use it safely, or they cannot participate. Yeah. So we have kids that are amazingly responsible, amazingly good citizens that have come out of that program. They're great.
So, Alan, do you think that we're now going to be seeing a rush across Canada of people buying handguns before this bill passes?
Yes. Every time the federal government announces firearm safety laws, my student list goes up, swells up, and every time people are in a flurry to buy equipment that might go away in the future, right, or might be restricted or controlled. Some of that is bizarre. When we're talking about the restricted firearms, the ones that are going to be restricted now, or prohibited, I should say. One, in my case, I have one that I bought 25 years ago, a non-restricted firearm, can use it, shoot a gopher or
shoot a gopher.
Well, you know, there are problems at the farm, so, or shoot a coyote if that's killing our cats or whatever, and then you clean it, put it back in the safe, and it's good. You know, use it for another year, right? So now I am a criminal now if I take that out of the safe. Well, that's craziness.
This, of course, is a really emotional time with all recent mass shootings in the U.S.
Yes.
So a lot of people do want to see governments do something to stop that gun violence. So do you think that banning guns will have a tangible effect on this?
No, unfortunately it will not. It's and the terrible tragedy, I cannot imagine the pain those parents in Texas are going through to have their little ones killed and it's heartbreaking. Some of them people will never recover from that kind of trauma, right? So it's horrible. But firearms, violence, like all violence, is just a symptom, right? We got to get at the cause. What is the cause? How does an 18-year-old kid get to the point where he is so disconnected and so full of hate that he's going to kill all these little innocent children, right? How does that happen? So what supports were missing to get that kid to a point where he could be helped and he would never got to that stage, right? So, and I'm not blaming, and grandma seems like she did her best to be a loving parent, but you know what, the kid was apparently, you know, really abused and teased and that kind of thing, and not unlike, remember the tragedy in Tabor, what is that, 15 years ago? Same thing, a little kid that was, you know, picked on and abused and told he's a worthless piece of every day, and then all of a sudden what happens, right? Violence is the problem. How do we address the violence? Because that's the issue, right? And I think we have to draw a distinction between self-violence and violence against others. Do you think that makes sense, that distinction? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because violence against self, our laws don't seem to want to be involved with that if a person, a Canadian, no longer wants to be here, that they have the right to no longer be here, and then they can even get the medically assisted dying if they want. So self against harm is entirely different. So the whole thing that we're addressing is self against others. So the
harm against self, harm against self. Yeah.
Harm against others. Thank you. Harm against others. So that's the issue we're addressing. As it relates to firearms, that's a very, very small part of the problem. 80% of the firearm deaths in Canada are suicide. And then of the 5% that are accidents, I'm sure many of those are actually suicides as well. So we're talking a very small chunk of 1,200 Canadians, according to the Firearm Safety Course, 1,200 Canadians who die every year, at least 80% are self-harm. So
it's so sad.
It is.
Do you think it's fair to say that a bill like this, new gun laws won't necessarily change the minds of hardened criminals or gang members to somehow give up gun violence?
The laws that come into place, if we're following, if the responsible firearm owners are already following all the laws, right, and all the laws already will not allow, are so stringent already. Just as a good example, we keep hearing this as assault-style rifles, right? That's what you keep hearing. Okay, so what is an assault-style rifle? According to Google, if you look it up, it's a fully automatic firearm that is used in military pursuits, right? You're going to use it to kill people. That's what an assault rifle is. We don't have assault rifles in Canada. They've been banned in Canada since 1978. So we don't have them. They're banned. There is no fully automatic firearms. Well, pardon me, there's a couple old guys that probably have them, and they got them in their safe because they're never going to leave. And when they die, they're going to be chopped up and destroyed. So we don't have assault rifles in Canada, period.
Okay. Any thoughts on where the government could better spend our money to reduce gun violence?
I love that you asked that question. That is a beautiful question. But I'm going to change it up a little bit, okay? I think that reducing violence is important, but I don't think it's just gun violence because that's a really, really small part of the puzzle. Here's what I think is something we could make huge gains for people. Every day, every night in Canada, there's 3,500 women who are escaping domestic violence in their home, kiddies on their shoulders or on their hips, trying to get out of harm's way every night. And about 300 more women and their kiddos don't find shelter because there's not enough room. Okay, that is where we could make a huge, huge difference in people's lives. Instead of looking at a problem where it's mostly to do with self-harm, let's look at harm to others, very vulnerable people, and give them supports and protection.
Wow, okay. Do you think that it's too easy for someone to get a gun license in Canada? Do you think that our gun laws are too lax?
No, they are. I know we look at the South and we say, oh, we got this big problem because the South has a big problem. Our numbers are entirely different. We have 1,200 deaths in Canada from firearms in a year, right? 80% of those are suicide. In the United States, it's 35,000, something like that. Instead of 1,200, it's 35,000. It's a whole different context, right? And then also there's the firearm controls there. You could buy a gun anywhere, any weekend, you can go to a swap meet and buy a gun in the United States, right? They don't even ask for your piece of ID, right? Here, you have to take a course. You have to take two courses, Canadian Firearm Safety Course or Canadian Firearm Restricted Safety Course, in order that you can apply for a license. When you apply for license, you're going to answer questions about your mental health, your financial health, your marital health, or your relationship health, those kind of things. You're going to provide references that are going to check you over. They're going to do a police check. And firearm owners in Canada are the most vetted people in our whole country, because every day, if I'm a firearm owner, which I am, they'd run a police check on me every day on every Canadian who has a firearm license. So we are kept to a higher standard. They don't check you, they check me every day. And if there's something there's an issue that maybe I've gone to violence or then I get approached and gee, we're going to take them firearms, right? Yeah. And I don't have any problem with that. That's being prudent, but it's rarely. I've been teaching this course for 35 years. I can't think of one time where I had a student say, ooh, that guy shouldn't have a gun. I mean, the people who come here are just people who want to engage in a very safe, exciting, dynamic sport that can be a lifetime sport and is the safest sport in the world. Like, you do the stats on the Olympics, like of shooting sports worldwide. Shooting is the safest sport.
Mm-hmm. So how do we keep guns from getting into the hands of the wrong people?
Well, one, be very, very harsh on the criminals, right? Like, that's not happening right now. It's kind of, you catch them and they get a slap in the hand and they go out. No. Firearm laws, firearm infractions, violence of any sort should be extremely harshly dealt with. We got to stop it. Like, that's the problem. Violence leads to trauma for people, right? And then that trauma leads to lives that are really hard for their whole life unless they deal with the trauma they've experienced, and often they experience as a child.
You had kind of alluded to the youth shooting program that you have here. So let's talk about the many individuals and families with kids who come out to the shooting gallery here. Is it a safe sport in your opinion?
Let me tell you about a time when I was wrong. I've been wrong a few times. Rick Blakely was saying range 3 over here, we're going to make it into a 22 range only. They're quiet, very, very little recoil, right? And I thought, that's crazy. What is he doing? But then every night, every weekend, I see grandma there with his grandchild, and I see grandma and the aunties shooting, and it's just a beautiful family place. You come out, you buy a box of ammo for, you know, whatever this is, $3, and you got an afternoon of fun, right, with your grandkids. It's a beautiful place. So yeah, very, very family-oriented activity that way. And with the youth program, oh man, we got some kids that are, there's one kid. He was so small, he was 12. I was really worried about him, but he was really, really dedicated to muzzle control and trigger control. He was very, very focused on it. But he had to put 2 fingers on the trigger to press it when he was so small initially.
Sure, of course.
But now he's like this tall and, you know, like just an amazing gun handler. If anything happened, I would not be at all worried that he would be safe, whatever happened. So.
Okay, so Alan, what are the benefits of kids learning to shoot?
Well, the best thing I can share for you is that there's a pretty, in all of our life, we make decisions, and those decisions result in consequences, and that, you know, here's what happens because of it, right? With shooting, that is like down to a millisecond, right? I take this action, I press this trigger, this bullet leaves this muzzle, it hits there. So it happens right now. So in a similar way to my life, I have control. If I have control what happens here, I'm going to control what happens down there. In my life, I can make adjustments. With a firearm, I can't. Once the trigger is pressed, the bullet's going where it's going to go. But that tie to this action results in this consequence, and then relate that to this applies to your life as well, right? If you do these things, here's what's going to happen.
So life lessons then.
I think so.
Okay, so what would you say to a parent who says, hey, is this potentially going to make my child like violence or become more violent?
It will 100% help your child to become a more responsible human being, period, full stop. There's nobody that we get out here and they say, ooh, that kid came from our program and now, you know, we got to go get him arrested because he's lost it, right? That doesn't happen, right? So
Alan, I know that we would love to hear about the facility here. It's large. It's way bigger than I expected. This is my first time here. So tell me about it.
This is an amazing facility, and we're very, very thankful for our relationship with the City of Lethbridge, Mayor, Council, and the administration. They've been very supportive. We recently had a huge enhancement to this facility. It's $1.7 million with city funds, with fish and game funds, and with a commitment to support our youth program going on. Every year we spend about $30,000 supporting youth programs. So that's free ammunition, free instruction, free range time, free targets. So, and all of the people who do that are all volunteers. So we have people who volunteer to make that happen. So an amazing world-class facility right here, the City of Lethbridge right there. How can we operate a range when the City of Lethbridge is right there? Because this is a total containment facility. With these last enhancements, this is like the world class, the best standard you can get in terms of a projectile management. That's really what a range is, a projectile management system. And we have the best system that exists right here.
Okay, and you were saying that even the Lethbridge Police Service comes here to do their practicing.
They do. Lethbridge Police, RCMP, CBSA, we have them and support them. We're very, very big fans of law enforcement and working with law enforcement. We've had situations where law enforcement have came to us and asked us about an individual. Is this, you know, should we be worried? That kind of a thing. And what we will often do is just say, here's our cameras, here's our feed. You know, you give it a look, right? We want to be everybody safe. We're on the same side with anti-gun Sally that doesn't want anybody to own a gun. She don't want anybody to gun because she wants to be safe. We want you to be safe. We want everybody to be safe. Firearms by themselves are not dangerous. It's a piece of equipment. We can all use them safely if we choose to.
Right.
Or not use them at all if you don't want them. That's
you
okay.
Actually made a really good point earlier about somebody in a car.
Yes.
Because that also could be considered an assault weapon. So
yeah. It's, again, violence of all forms is just a symptom, right? The cause, what is the cause? That's what we have to address, right? There's water running and there's people who drown in the water. We don't say we're going to ban the river. We say we're going to teach people how to swim, and we're not going to throw kids in the river who can't swim, right? Who are not old enough to swim, right? That's what we're going to do. So in a life way, anything could be used as a weapon. And if you had, you know, my 2010 Dodge truck that I ran through people and killed people, it'd be a horrible, terrible event, of course. But I'm not expecting the government of Canada is going to, you know, ban 20-ton Dodge trucks forever. Like, it's not. It's a piece of equipment. My action was the problem, not the piece of equipment, right? And it's the same if I, you know, with violence, whether it's a knife or a fist or a foot or a baseball bat or a golf club, it's all just, it's using an appliance to do violence to people, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it is.
Okay, so on the same vein of safety,
yes,
maybe teach us some safety tricks, I guess. If I was a brand new client here, yes, what would you teach me?
Okay, by the time you leave here today, there's 2 things you're going to tell me before you go. Every time you pick up a gun, you're going to pick it, you're going to point in the safest direction, and you're going to keep your finger off the damn trigger. Those 2 things. You're going to do those consistently before you leave here. There's actually, what is there, 6, 7 steps to it, but really the 2 are choose to have the safest muzzle direction at all times, and your finger is only on the trigger when your sights are aligned on the target. The rest of the time, your finger's off the trigger. So those 2 things. The whole thing is actually, according to the Canadian firearms course, assume it's loaded, control the muzzle, keep your finger off the trigger and other trigger guard, see that it's safe by proving it's safe. Keep it pointed in a safe direction, remove the ammunition, observe the chamber, verify the feeding path, examine the bore. So those are the actual steps. But the 2, if people leave and they keep the muzzle in a safe direction, they keep the finger off the trigger, I say hallelujah, I did my job.
Well, Alan, thanks so much for having us out today. I know I learned a lot for sure.
Hey, I appreciate you coming. Thanks for coming to our amazing facility and your interest in firearm safety. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. That is Alan Friesen, the past president of the Lethbridge Fish and Game and the firearms instructor here at Lethbridge Fish and Game Shooting and Sports Facility. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.